The galaxy had known peace for 3,000 years, not because the many species had learned to love each other, not because war had become impossible. The peace existed because of fear. Every species, from the oldest to the youngest, shared one rule that nobody ever spoke aloud: never wake the humans. Earth floated in the darkness of space like a frozen tomb. The planet's sun had begun dying long ago, and the humans had faced a terrible choice. They could flee to the stars and bring their wars with them, or they could sleep. They chose sleep. 12 billion humans lay frozen beneath the surface of their world. They rested in massive underground vaults that stretched for hundreds of miles. The vaults hummed with ancient power, keeping the sleepers alive through the long centuries. Waiting, always waiting. Ambassador stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Council. Her silver scales caught the pale light as she moved to the center of the room. She was old for her species, nearly 200 years, and she had spent most of those years studying the humans. What she had learned kept her awake at night. The council chamber held representatives from 40 different species. Some had bodies of crystal, others floated in tanks of strange liquid. A few existed only as patterns of light, but they all turned to watch speak. "I have completed my research," she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. "I have read the old records, I have studied the artifacts, and I must tell you what I found." Elder of the collective leaned forward. His body was made of living crystal, and it chimed softly as he moved. He was the oldest being in the chamber, nearly 4,000 years old. He remembered the time before the humans slept. "Tell us," he said, "though I suspect I already know." Took a deep breath. The humans did not sleep because they were weak. They did not sleep because their sun was dying. They had the technology to save themselves. They had ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They had weapons that could crack planets in half. The chamber grew very quiet. "They slept because they were too strong," continued. "Their final wars killed billions. They destroyed 3-star systems in their rage. And then they looked at what they had done, and they felt such shame that they could not bear it." She pulled up a holographic display. It showed images from the ancient past: cities burning, fleets of ships tearing each other apart, planets crumbling into dust. They chose to sleep as punishment for themselves. They believed that if they stayed awake, they would eventually destroy everything. So they built their vaults, froze themselves, and trusted the galaxy to leave them alone. A young delegate from the Dominion laughed. He was tall and covered in dark red plates. His species had risen to power only 500 years ago. They had never seen a living human. "Stories," he said, "old tales to frighten children. These humans were just another species that failed. We should study their technology, not fear their ghosts." Elder's crystal body flashed with angry light. "You know nothing, young one. I was alive when the humans fought their last war. I watched them burn a sun just to destroy an enemy fleet. They were not like us. They felt everything too deeply. Love, anger, fear, joy. Every emotion burned in them like a fire that could never be controlled." The delegate rolled his eyes, but before he could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the chamber. "What is happening?" demanded. A screen flickered to life, showing a small ship descending toward Earth. The markings on its hull belonged to the Dominion. His blood turned cold. "Who sent that ship?" The delegate smiled proudly. "I did. My people are tired of living in fear of sleeping ghosts. We will take their technology and use it to build a greater empire. The humans will serve us, or they will stay frozen forever." Elder made a sound like breaking glass. It was the way of expressing horror. "You fool, you absolute fool, what have you done?" On the frozen earth below, deep beneath miles of ice and rock, something stirred in Vault 7. The ship's landing had sent vibrations through the ground. Ancient sensors detected the intrusion. Old programs began to run for the first time in 3,000 years. In pod number 7042, a woman named floated in frozen sleep. She had been a teacher before the Great Sleep. She had taught young children how to read and write. She had also been a soldier in the final war, decorated for bravery, haunted by the things she had done. When the humans chose to sleep, she had kissed her daughter goodbye and told her that they would dream together. She had held her husband Minu's hand as the cold took them. Now warmth began to spread through her pod. Her heart, still for 3,000 years, began to beat, slowly at first, then faster. Her brain started to wake, and with it came dreams. She dreamed of fire and screaming. She dreamed of holding a weapon and watching enemies fall. She dreamed of her daughter asking why the sky was burning. And then she dreamed of something else. She felt strangers walking through her home. She sensed weapons being carried into the place where children slept. The rage that humans had tried to bury with their long sleep began to stir inside her. Far above, in the council chamber, Ambassador watched the scanners with growing dread. Energy signatures were appearing all across Earth. The vaults were activating. "The awakening has begun," she whispered. Elder closed his crystal eyes. "Then may the galaxy forgive us all. The humans are waking up, and they will remember why they chose to sleep." Commander watched Earth grow larger through the window of his ship. The planet was covered in ice and darkness. It looked dead. He smiled at the sight. He had grown up hearing stories about the humans. His grandmother used to tell him tales of monsters that could destroy stars with their anger. She would whisper about creatures that felt emotions so strongly that they became dangerous. She told him to be grateful that the humans were asleep. Thought his grandmother was a fool. "They want us to fear ghosts," he told his crew as the ship descended. "The elder races use these stories to keep us weak. They tell us that humans were monsters so that we never question their power. But I know the truth." His science officer, a young male named, looked at his instruments with worried eyes. "Commander, the energy readings from this planet are very strange. The power systems in these vaults are still running after 3,000 years. That should not be possible." "It means their technology is valuable," replied. "Which is exactly why we are here. Imagine what the Dominion could do with machines that never stop working. We could conquer the entire galaxy." Said nothing, but his hands shook as he worked his controls. The ship landed near the entrance to Vault 7. Ice cracked beneath its weight. The air outside was so cold that it would kill an unprotected person in seconds. But the soldiers wore heated armor. They stepped out onto the frozen surface without fear. Led his team toward a massive metal door half buried in ice. Ancient writing covered its surface. Scanned it with his translator. "It is a warning," he said. "It says, 'Here sleeps humanity. Let them dream in peace, for their waking brings only sorrow.'" Laughed, poetry from a dead species, cut through the door. His soldiers used plasma torches to burn through the metal. It took hours. The door was thick and made of materials that resisted their tools. But finally, it fell inward with a crash that echoed into darkness. Cold air rushed out of the vault. It smelled old and strange, like a room that had been closed for too long. Stepped inside and turned on his lights. The vault stretched away into blackness. Rows of pods lined the walls, each one containing a frozen figure. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, more than could count. "They look so small," one of his soldiers said. "So weak. These are the monsters we were told to fear." Moved closer to one of the pods. Inside, a human female floated in pale blue liquid. Her eyes were closed. Her face looked peaceful. She could have been sleeping in a normal bed. "The records said they were dangerous because of how they felt things," said quietly. "They loved too much. They hated too much. Every emotion was extreme. That is what made them fight so terribly." "Emotions make you weak," said. "The learned that lesson long ago. We cut away our softer feelings. That is why we are strong." He walked deeper into the vault. his boots ringing against the metal floor. His soldiers followed, their weapons ready. They did not notice the small lights that began to blink on the walls. They did not see the ancient computers waking from their long sleep. Deep in the vault, Pod detected the intruders. Sensors measured their weapons. Programs calculated the threat level, and then the thawing sequence began. Warmth spread through her frozen body. Her blood, thick and still for 3,000 years, began to flow again. Her lungs expanded with their first breath since the Great Sleep. It hurt. Everything hurt. But the pain brought memories. She remembered the war. She remembered fighting in the ruins of cities, surrounded by the bodies of friends and enemies alike. She remembered the moment she realized that humans could not be trusted with their own power. She remembered holding her daughter and promising that the sleeping would make everything better. She remembered why the humans had chosen to sleep. And now she heard footsteps in her home, strange voices speaking strange words, the sound of weapons being prepared. Her eyes opened. The pod's glass slid away. Blue liquid drained around her. She fell forward onto cold metal, naked and shaking. Her muscles screamed after 3,000 years of stillness. She could barely move. But she could see. 20 meters away, and his soldiers stood with their backs to her. They were examining another row of pods, talking about which humans to take as samples. Tried to stand. Her legs gave out. She fell again, making a sound against the floor. Turned, his eyes went wide when he saw her. A living human, awake and watching him. "Impossible," he whispered. His voice came out as a croak, rough from disuse. "Why are you here?" Raised his weapon. "You will answer my questions, not the other way around. You are outnumbered and weak. Your species slept for 3,000 years. You are nothing now." Looked at him. Then she looked at the pods around them. Thousands of pods, millions throughout all the vaults on Earth, each one containing a human who was now beginning to wake. "You should not have come here," she said. "Is that a threat?" Aimed his weapon at her head. "You can barely stand." "It is not a threat." His voice grew stronger with each word. "It is a warning. We chose to sleep because we were dangerous. We chose to sleep because we could not trust ourselves, and now you have woken us up." All around them, pods began to hiss and click. Lights changed from blue to amber to red. The vault filled with the sound of ancient machines coming back to life. Looked around in growing fear. "What is happening?" Smiled, but there was no joy in it. "You wanted to meet the humans. Now you will." The vault had become chaos. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. Alarms screamed in languages that had not been spoken for 3,000 years. Pod after pod opened with hissing sounds, releasing humans who gasped and choked as they returned to life. Soldiers formed a circle, their weapons pointed outward. They were trained warriors. They had conquered dozens of worlds, but now their hands shook and their voices cracked with fear. "Commander, what do we do?" one of them asked. Did not answer. He watched as more humans emerged from their pods, men and women, old and young. They fell to the ground, weak and confused, their bodies struggling to remember how to move. He had expected monsters. He had expected creatures of terrible power, ready to destroy everything in their path. Instead, he saw ordinary beings who could barely stand. "They are helpless," he said, and his confidence began to return. "Look at them. 3,000 years of sleep has made them weak. We can still control this situation." He pointed his weapon at. "You will order your people to surrender. If they cooperate, we will let some of them live. If they resist, we will kill every human in this vault." Had managed to stand. Her legs trembled beneath her, but she stayed upright through pure will. She looked at the weapon aimed at her face. Then she looked at. "You do not understand what you have done," she said. "I understand perfectly. I have found a species of weaklings hiding in the dark. I will bring them into the light and make them serve the Dominion." Shook her head slowly. We did not sleep because we were weak. We slept because we were too strong. We slept because we looked at what we had done and we could not bear the shame of it. She took a step toward him. His finger tightened on the trigger, but something in her eyes made him hesitate. Before the sleep, I was a teacher, she continued. I taught small children how to read. I showed them how to write their names. I told them stories about kindness and love. Her voice hardened. I was also a soldier. I killed more enemies than I could count. I burned cities. I watched friends die. I did terrible things and told myself they were necessary. Another step forward. The other humans in the vault had stopped struggling. They watched her with recognition in their eyes. They remembered too. When the war ended, I looked at my hands and saw blood that would never wash away. I looked at my daughter and wondered what kind of world I had created for her. I looked at the stars and saw only more enemies to fight, more wars to win, more killing without end. She stood directly in front of Now, close enough to touch. His weapon pressed against her chest, but she did not seem to care. So we chose to sleep, not because we feared death. We slept because we feared ourselves. We slept because we knew that if we stayed awake, our rage and pain would spread across the galaxy like fire. Tried to speak, but his voice would not come. And now you have woken us up, said. You have brought weapons into the place where our children sleep. You have threatened our families. You have reminded us of everything we tried to forget. Her hand moved faster than could see. One moment he held his weapon. The next moment it was in her hand, and he was on the ground, gasping from a blow he never saw coming. His soldiers fired. Plasma bolts streaked toward from every direction, but she was already moving, spinning between the shots like water flowing around stones. She had been weak moments ago. Now she fought with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. In seconds, every soldier lay on the ground. Their weapons were broken. Their armor was cracked. But they were alive. All of them were alive. Stood over, breathing hard. The other awakened humans gathered behind her. Some had found clothes. Others still shivered in the cold. But all of them watched with the same expression. They remembered what they were capable of, and they were choosing not to do it. I could kill you, said quietly. Every human in this vault could feel your blood on their hands, and we would not lose a moment of sleep over it. That is what we are. That is what we have always been. She crouched down to look into his eyes. But we chose to sleep because we wanted to become something better. We chose to sleep because we hoped that when we woke up, we would find a way to use our strength for good instead of destruction. She placed his broken weapon on the ground beside him. You are going to live, Commander. You are going to go back to your people and tell them what happened here. Tell them that the humans are awake. Tell them that we remember everything. And tell them that this time we are going to do things differently. Finally found his voice. What are you going to do? Behind, a man emerged from the crowd. He was tall and thin, with gentle eyes. He walked to her side and took her hand. Minu, she breathed, you are awake. I felt you calling, he said. I felt your anger and your fear, and I came. They held each other for a long moment. Around them, more humans continued to wake. The vault filled with the sounds of crying and laughing and calling out for loved ones. Turn back to. You asked what we are going to do. We are going to find our daughter. We are going to make sure every human wakes safely. And then we are going to look at the galaxy and see what needs to be fixed. Her smile was gentle now, but something fierce burned behind her eyes. The universe should be very worried. The humans are awake, and this time we are going to help. The news spread across the galaxy like fire in dry grass. Every world, every station, every ship received the same message. The humans were awake. The sleepers had risen. For the elder races, it was a nightmare they had prayed would never come. Ambassador watched the reports with cold dread filling her stomach. She saw images of humans emerging from their vaults, thousands of them, then millions. Each one carried 3,000 years of frozen memories. I must go to Earth, she told the Galactic Council. Someone must speak with them before this becomes a war. Elder's crystal body flickered with worry. If you go, you may not return. The humans we knew were not interested in talking. Then I will die trying to change their minds, gathered her robes. But I do not think they will kill me. Something is different. The reports say they spared the soldiers. The old humans would have torn them apart. She took the fastest ship in the fleet and flew toward Earth. On the frozen planet below, the awakening continued. Vault after vault opened. Families found each other in the darkness. Parents held children who had not aged a day in 3,000 years. Lovers kissed for the first time since the world ended. Found her daughter in Vault 3. The little girl was only 6 years old, same as the day she went to sleep. She woke crying and confused and held her until the tears stopped. "Mama, I had bad dreams," whispered. "I know, my love, I had them too. Are we safe now? Is the fire gone?" Looked at her daughter's innocent face. She thought about the soldiers she had defeated. She thought about the weapons they had brought into this place of peace. She thought about all the things she had learned from Commander. The galaxy was not safe. The Dominion had conquered 17 star systems. They treated other species like slaves. The elder races had grown lazy and weak in their long peace. The same patterns of cruelty and war continued, just with different faces. "Not yet," she told her daughter, "but we are going to make it safe, I promise." Minyu joined them, and they held each other as a family for the first time in 3,000 years. Around them, similar scenes played out everywhere. Humans reconnecting, humans remembering, humans deciding what to do next. A council formed naturally. No one elected leaders. No one gave orders. The humans simply gathered and began to talk, the way they always had when facing difficult choices. "They will attack," said a man named who had been a general in the old wars. "They will see our awakening as a threat. They will try to destroy us before we become strong." "Let them come," said a woman named Sara who bore scars from battles long forgotten. "We remember how to fight. We can crush them in days." "And then what?" stood before the gathering, her daughter holding her hand. Then we crush whoever threatens us next. Then we crush the next enemy after that. How long until we become the monsters the galaxy fears?" Silence fell over the crowd. "We chose to sleep because we were tired of being destroyers," continued. "We chose to sleep because we hoped to wake up as something better. If we answer every threat with violence, we will be exactly what we were before. Nothing will have changed." Minyu stepped forward. "Then what do you suggest? Should we let them attack us? Should we watch them hurt our children?" "No," his voice was firm. "We protect our families, we defend our home, but we do not stop there. We do not hide on Earth and wait for enemies to come. We go out into the galaxy and we fix what is broken." Confused murmurs spread through the crowd. "The conquered 17 systems," said. "Millions of beings live under their rule, suffering and afraid. We have the power to free them, not through war, not through destruction, through help." She looked at the faces around her. Old soldiers and young children, scientists and farmers, teachers and builders, all of them carrying the same fire in their hearts. "We go to the conquered worlds and we offer assistance. We teach them how to resist. We protect them when they try to punish them. We show the galaxy that humans can be guardians instead of destroyers." "They will fight us," General warned. "They will not give up their empire without blood." "Then we bleed." His voice did not waver. "We take the hits, we absorb the anger, and we never stop helping. Eventually, even they will see that fighting us is pointless. Not because we are too strong to defeat, but because killing us will not stop what we have started." Tugged at her mother's hand. "Mama, are we going to be heroes?" Knelt down to look into her daughter's eyes. "I do not know, my love, maybe. Or maybe we will just be people who tried to do the right thing. But either way, we are going to try." She stood and faced the crowd again. Who will come with me? One by one hands rose, first dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Not every human agreed. Some wanted to fight, some wanted to hide, but enough of them believed in its vision to make it real. When Ambassador's ship finally reached Earth, she found humans already preparing to leave. Ships that had slept for 3,000 years were waking up. Crews were forming. Missions were being planned. Walked through the crowds in amazement. She had expected to find an army preparing for conquest. Instead, she found something she had never seen before. She found hope. Met her at the entrance to Vault 7. Ambassador, I wondered when someone would come. I came to beg for peace, admitted. I came to offer whatever the humans wanted in exchange for mercy. We do not want your surrender, smiled gently. We want your help. The galaxy is broken, Ambassador. We are going to fix it. Will you show us where to start? Stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly she began to smile. I think I know exactly where to begin. 5 years passed. The galaxy had changed more in those 5 years than in the previous 3,000. Everything the elder races believed about power and peace had been turned upside down. Everything they thought they knew about humans had been proven wrong. It started small. A single human ship arrived at a world called Deep in Territory. The people there had lived under occupation for 200 years. They had forgotten what freedom felt like. The humans did not come with weapons. They came with food and medicine. They came with teachers and builders. They came with open hands and patient smiles. The garrison tried to stop them. They fired on the human ship. They arrested humans who walked through the streets. They beat those who would not fight back. The humans did not fight back. They took every blow. They accepted every punishment, and they kept helping. When one human fell, 2 more took their place. When they destroyed their supplies, more supplies arrived. When they killed human volunteers, the humans held funerals and sent more volunteers. The people have watched in amazement. They had never seen anything like it. Beings with obvious power choosing to suffer instead of fight. Strength expressed through sacrifice instead of violence. Slowly, carefully, the people have began to resist. Not with weapons, but with refusal. They stopped working in factories. They stopped obeying orders. They stood in the streets and said no for the first time in 200 years. They could not kill everyone. They tried. They made examples. They burned homes and executed leaders. But for every person they punished, 10 more stepped forward. Within a year was free. The same story repeated across the galaxy. Humans appeared wherever there was suffering. They built schools on war-torn worlds. They brought medicine to dying colonies. They stood between oppressors and victims, absorbing hatred and answering with kindness. It seemed impossible. It seemed naive. Every military expert in the galaxy predicted that the humans would be destroyed. You cannot win wars without fighting, they said. You cannot defeat enemies with compassion. But the humans were not trying to defeat enemies. They were trying to make enemies impossible. Commander watched his empire crumble from his flagship. He had been promoted after the incident on Earth. The leaders believed he had valuable experience with humans. They were right, but not in the way they expected. He understood what the humans were doing. He understood it better than anyone else in the Dominion, and he knew that his people could not stop it. They are not fighting us, he told the High Council. They are making fighting meaningless. Every world we try to hold slips through our fingers. Every population we try to control rises up against us, not because they hate us, because they have seen another way. The High Council dismissed his warnings. They sent more soldiers. They built more weapons. They cracked down harder and harder on resistance. It made no difference. The Dominion collapsed not through military defeat, but through simple exhaustion. Their soldiers grew tired of punishing people who would not stay punished. Their officers grew sick of ordering deaths that changed nothing. Their leaders grew afraid of an enemy they could not understand. On the day the last fleet surrendered, there was no celebration, no victory parade, no terms of surrender. The humans simply welcomed the soldiers as friends and asked if they needed help rebuilding their worlds. Ambassador stood beside on the observation deck of a space station orbiting the. Below them, human volunteers were already landing. They would bring the same things they brought everywhere: food, medicine, teachers, hope. I still do not understand, admitted. You had the power to destroy them. You had the right to take revenge for everything they did. Why did you choose this path? Watched her daughter playing with a group of children on the deck below. The children came from a dozen different species, and human and alien, all playing together. Before the Great Sleep, I killed many enemies, said quietly. I was good at it. I was proud of it. I told myself that violence was necessary, that my enemies deserved to die, that I was protecting my people. She turned to face the ambassador. But killing never fixed anything. Every enemy I destroyed created two more. Every war I won led to another war. The cycle never ended. It never would have ended, no matter how many times we won. So you chose to lose instead. No, we chose to stop playing the game entirely, smiled. We realized that the only way to truly win was to make winning and losing meaningless. If we refused to be enemies, then there could be no war. If we answered every attack with kindness, then eventually our attackers would run out of hate. Shook her head slowly. Your people died. Thousands of humans died bringing peace to the galaxy. How can you accept that? We accepted it because we knew what would happen if we did not try. Eyes grew distant. We slept for 3,000 years, Ambassador. We dreamed of the old wars. We felt the weight of all the death we had caused, and we decided that we would rather die as healers than live as destroyers. She looked back at the children playing below. The humans who died chose their deaths. They walked into danger knowing what might happen. They did it so that children like my daughter could grow up in a galaxy without war. That is not losing. That is the greatest victory we could ever achieve. A year later, the Galactic Council met for the first time since the Awakening. Every species was represented. Humans sat among them, no longer feared, no longer isolated. Elder rose to speak. His crystal body glowed with colors no one had seen before. We gather today to mark the end of an era. For thousands of years, this galaxy knew peace through fear. We avoided war because we dreaded what might happen if the humans awoke. He turned to look at, who sat quietly with her family. Now we know what happens when humans awake. They do not destroy, they do not conquer, they heal, they help. They sacrifice themselves so that others might live in peace. His voice grew soft. We feared the wrong thing. We should not have feared their awakening. We should have hoped for it, because a human awakening was not the end of all wars through violence. It was the end of all wars through love. The chamber fell silent, stood slowly. Every eye in the room turned to her. She felt the weight of the moment, the importance of what she was about to say. We did not do this alone, she said. Every species in this room helped us. You took a chance on us when you had every reason to be afraid. You believed that we could change, even when our history suggested otherwise. She looked at her daughter, now 11 years old, sitting between her parents with wonder in her eyes. We went asleep as warriors. We woke up as parents, and parents will do anything to make the world safer for their children. She spread her arms to include everyone in the chamber. All of you are our children now. All of you are our family, and we will never sleep again. We will stay awake, and we will keep helping, and we will make sure that no child ever has to fear war again. The chamber erupted in cheering. Species that had been enemies for centuries embraced each other. Tears flowed freely. Laughter echoed off ancient walls. In the midst of it all, held her family close and looked out at the stars. The humans had finally found their purpose, not as destroyers, not as conquerors, as guardians of a galaxy that had finally learned to hope. And the wars were over, not just paused, not just delayed. Over forever.